Welcome to the unit on La Clase. In the next minute, I'm going to walk you through how I present the unit to my classroom. We begin each unit with vocabulary. This unit has two lists of vocabulary. One is the list on classroom phrases, and the other is a list of small words that we've been looking at over the last 6 weeks that'll help us read the story and the stories that come after this. I modeled the vocabulary, so I say, I'll go to the door and say, open the door, close the door, turn on the light, turn off the light, open the book, close the book, turn in the paper, hand out the paper. So I'm modeling this vocabulary as well as we go through it. My classroom has a smartboard on the wall, so it's common for me to go over the vocabulary with them using the Quizlet cards up on the smartboard on the wall. Students can study the vocabulary list on their own, and they can also scan the QR code to study the Quizlet cards in their phone. Homework on the first night includes my students scanning these QR codes and watching the lessons. As they watch the lessons, they'll take notes on this page here. This unit contains no grammar. It contains vocabulary and phrases that are useful for using in the classroom. This story right here is the English translation of the story that they're about to read. After they read each page of the story, they can refer back to this QR code and they can check their translation against the translation that's offered here. On the second day of class, my students would fill out the crossword puzzle to familiarize themselves with the vocabulary and the phrases. The reason I like crossword puzzles is because they're self-correcting and they can refer back to the vocabulary list to learn the words. On the third day of class, I have my students translate these sentences to get in the hang of writing sentences and figuring out what words mean by context. And if they don't know the word, they can look it up. My classroom has bilingual dictionaries that they can use, and some schools allow students to use word reference or different online dictionaries as well. And of course, as they finish each page, they can correct their work on the QR codes up in the corner. On the fourth day of class, my students do a web adventure where they Google this information and begin to familiarize themselves with some culture. The story that they read takes place in Morelia, Michoacan, and I want them to learn a little bit about the city and the places and events that might take place in the story. In this case, I want them to know a little bit about the map of Mexico and where Michoacan is. In the stories that follow this one, there are several trees that are important in the story, and I want them to see kind of these unique trees that are in and around Michoacan. Students will learn that the Cathedral of Morelia is pink. It's really a beautiful and a unique color. And it's also a key location in the story that comes up right after this one. And the building that's on this corner is a McDonald's restaurant. And the McDonald's restaurant is where this story takes place. And this fourth thing is just a very interesting pre-Columbian architectural site in the state of Michoacan that I want my own students to know about. It's really cool. And I like to introduce my students to as much pre-Columbian art and culture as I can. Once the students have learned the vocabulary enough and they know the phrases enough and they have these small words memorized that they've been working on, they're ready for a story. This is the first story that my students read every year, and a story about Simon. It takes place in Michoacan, in Morelia. And the way that this works is my students will translate into English underneath each of these phrases. So they'll write in, Simon is from Texas, which is a state in the southwest of the United States. Simon doesn't live in Texas. He's studying Spanish in the Mexican state of Michoacan. And so they know these words and they know to write this down. And as they write this down, they're starting to visualize the story. Words that are in bold, they may not know yet. So I put them up here in the glossary. And any word that is underlined is a word directly from our vocabulary list. Many of the other words are going to be cognates, such as mathematics, solutions, problems, student, again, math, family, Mexican. So the story uses lots of cognates. There's a glossary for words that they probably do not know. There are underlined words for the words that are right off the vocabulary list because all 32 words are used in each story. And many of the other words they've learned already through these small word lists. Once they've read the story, I want to know that they understood the story, and I want to give them a chance to summarize the story and to kind of pull it all together. The drawing is a really good way to do that. It causes them to draw a picture in their mind of what just happened in that story, and it allows them to recall that information later so that when they tell the stories to each other every day after each class, or sometimes even in the beginning of the next class, I have the students tell the story back and forth to each other for 60 seconds. Hey, what was the story yesterday? I want you to go with your partners in class and tell the story from yesterday. And they'll say, okay, Simón es un estudiante de Texas, and they'll kind of tell the story to each other based on what they drew in the drawing. They can look at the drawing and tell the story to their friend. And of course, there's a chance to practice their vocabulary down here in the end. The story also, if they scan this QR code, is read to them by a man from Mexico who's a professional voice actor. So when they scan this, they can hear, Simón es de Texas. They know how to pronounce each one of these words. It's a really good added value benefit, I think, to the story is this QR code up here in the corner of each story. After they've read the story, we're now on day 9 of the unit. The homework for them is to go home and to write in English a summary translation of the story, and they can correct this against the QR code. Once they've read the story, practice writing short sentences worked on the vocabulary with the crossword puzzle and the Quizlet cards, and even paper flashcards to play social learning games in the classroom, which with COVID is maybe not even possible this year. The students are ready for the unit test. They can take their vocabulary test for both the classroom phrases and the small words. And then in their own words, they write 10 5-word sentences describing the story. And once they've gotten this far, they have to tell the story for 3 minutes to their partner. This unit has allowed the students to speak, to read, to listen, and to write. So all 4 language skills are practiced, and the culture is going to be learning about Morelia, Michoacan, and some of the pre-Columbian work that's there as well. I hope that helps. I would love for you to enjoy this lesson as much as I do, and if not, that's okay too, you know. But I thought I'd make this short video for you to clarify how I teach the class. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'd love to work with you on that. All right, take care.